from WBBZ-TV Sports. It's time to beat the champ. Now, here are your hosts, Paul Peck and Sue Novoitsky.
Well, hi, everybody, and welcome to Week 2 at Classic Lanes in Kenmore. This is Beat the Champ. I am still trying to wrap my head around what we saw last week. An amazing week of storylines, performances, nearly a 300 game. But the good thing about it is you never know what's going to happen the next week, and that's where we are now.
I know. This week's story, we've got a veteran in John Masiello who has more career titles than we could talk about. And we've got a young man, Joe Montante, who actually works here. So does that give him an advantage? I don't know. I guess we'll find out. And, we got Chuck, we got Tim Finken, a left-hander, so there's still so many stories to talk about.
Yeah, it was an amazing first week at Classic Lanes, but we've had amazing weeks here before. If you'll remember a year ago, this is where Jeremy Zimmerman won every match in 3 straight weeks. So you never do know what you do expect when we walk in this place.
No, you never know, but it's always a great time. It's so much great energy here and a lot of streaks.
Yeah, well, first match is the veteran Chuck Jagodzinski taking on another veteran, John Masiello. That's coming up when we get you rolling.
I'm here on Beat the Champ, Week 2, new champion, $2.99 average. How are you going to keep that up?
$2.99 or better.
Good answer. Good answer. Got that last shot. Was there any nerves in the last shot? Got it in just a hair?
Yeah, I got it inside, and the lane broke down, so I had to wait for a few minutes, but I missed inside.
Yep, you're right. There was a little bit of a breakdown there, and that does affect things. So you've got a new match today, new matches to come up against John Masiello, first one. You know he's a tough competitor.
I know that, so I have to keep doing what I've been doing.
You said it perfectly. Good luck. We'll see how this turns out.
Okay, thank you.
I'm here on Beat the Champ with John Masiello, one of the best bowlers in Western New York. Started the bowling season early September here. I see you're already in mid-season form. What'd you do this summer?
Actually, I took a little time off, and then I got back to work at it, and actually it helped a little taking the time off. I'm going to need it because Chuck looked like he's pretty lined up, so hopefully I can stay with him.
Well, he has a philosophy, strike or go home. Not a bad one, is it?
That seems to be the philosophy of a lot of bowlers lately. So.
All right, well, we know we're going to have good matches today, and, a strike or go home.
We'll do our best.
All right, good luck.
All right, thanks.
So here we go. Match number 1 is a couple of veteran bowlers, 2 of the best in Western New York, as our returning champ Chuck Jagodzinski takes on this guy, John Masiello, making his 7th appearance here on Beat the Champ. 5 wins and 4 losses, but even though 7 may not sound like a lot, John Masiello, as you clearly pointed out, Sue, has pretty much won everything there is to win in this town.
Yeah, and he's still performing well. He went to the Nationals, which was in Syracuse this year, which was one of the most difficult shots I think I have ever bowled on, and his team finished 23rd, which in the sheer amount of teams that are there is an amazing
Hundreds
number.
and hundreds of teams there, right?
Yeah.
Last time we saw John Masiello here on the show was a couple of months ago at Brad Angelo Lane, a year ago this summer at Brad Angelo Lane. It's been a lot. Boy, it seems like we see John almost every month, but it has been almost over a year since we've had him on the show.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just, he does take time off. He's, let himself heal from a few things that, a few aches and pains that happen. And he does have a very unique, another approach that's a little bit of a shovel approach. Here we go again.
Yep, picking up where he left off. Chuck Jagodzinski coming off a $2.99 performance in our last match with the win over Tom Kress. Seems to have figured out the lanes here at Classic in Kenmore. 19th show appearance for Chuck Jagodzinski. That's second to only Mike Zarcone. He has won 15 matches and lost 11. And ring around the 10-pin will set Chuck up for a spare.
So what's happening here, and Chuck alluded to it while we were talking to him, that the lanes will break down a little bit as he goes, and where he's playing, he's almost riding that oil line. So that oil line is going to break down as his ball continually goes over the same spot. So as he moves in, progressively more oil, his carry is going to change because the oil that he's getting through is denser as he gets forced to move in. So we may, the 10 pins are going to be a little more of a challenge for him, and there'll be a trick to it. If he moves his eyes a little bit to the right, he'll be able to still get some of that carry, but we'll see how it goes for him.
You saw where you can follow us on social media, like us on the Facebook page at Beat the Champ, of course on Twitter at Beat the Champ, for all the information and pictures and highlights of everything going on with the show. And of course, if you go on the Facebook page now, you can get all the dates for what is remaining opportunities for you to qualify for next month's series of shows at Island Lanes in Grand Island. So there's going to be qualifying not this weekend, but coming up throughout the course of the week, Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday of next week.
Well, the interesting thing is he's got some Wednesday qualifiers. They just started past Wednesday, and will continue this Wednesday at 6 and 8 p.m. So it's nice sometimes to get a little chance on the weeknights and not just tie up the whole weekend. So this week will be Wednesday, and he won't have Saturday and Sunday qualifiers till the 29th and the 30th.
So that'll be our next stop. And
always fun there.
Yeah, always fun to go to hang out with the Malwitz family up at Island Lanes in Grand Island.
Tapings on Wednesday, October 3rd.
Yes.
If people want to call ahead for the day off and come to Island and join the festivities.
We saw spares in the first two frames for John Masiello. See what he does here in frame 3. And it'll have to be another spare attempt for him. John Masiello is 63 years old, from Kenmore, right here in Kenmore. Works in the city of Buffalo resident as well, and works for the city as a city marshal. Of course, the name familiar to Buffalonians, his brother Tony, former mayor and former Canisius College basketball standout. So pretty good athletes in the Masiello family. John just didn't get the height that his brother got. This feels like a good time to take a short break. We'll be right back with more action on Beat the Champ. Welcome back to Beat the Champ. Let's get back to the action here on WBBZ-TV.
This ball going down the lane, as long as it is, that's what it affects, is the angle of entry.
Chuck Jagodzinski is 50 years old. He's from Lancaster, full-time occupation, employed at the Attica Correctional Facility. Long-time bowler since he was just a little Jagodzinski when he was about 8 years old. So a lot of his life has been spent hanging around bowling centers, and that's a good thing. 230, that's a good reason why he has a 235 average. Chuck is two-time Bowler of the Year in Buffalo, Tri-City Masters champ in 2016. He's won the kickoff tournament, did that in 2016. Just everything that needs to be accomplished by a great Buffalo bowler is on the resume of Chuck Jagodzinski.
Yeah.
We just got an open out of him here too, didn't we? I was reading my notes. Open for Chuck in the 6th.
You see here in 2005, he has a place 10th in all events of in the USBC, and that's the event that I was talking about that John just finished 23rd in. He's said 68,000 people. I mean, so you're looking at tens of thousands of people.
That's amazing. If that doesn't tell you what kind of bowlers come out of this town, that's about the best example of it.
Okay, so speaking of stories, John strikes in this shot, and this match is tied.
Really? Even though he's had 2 opens in the first 5 frames.
And he's fighting it. He's definitely fighting those spares, but if he strikes, he's not going to have to worry about that. He liked that shot too.
Very deliberate on the setup. But once again, there's that, we're going to say it a lot, I think, it's that 10 pin. I was thinking a little bit about what coming to this place has meant, and we've been here, it's our 3rd time now, and each of the 3 times there's always been something memorable that has happened. Of course, last year it didn't get any more memorable than something that has never happened on this show before, which was Jeremy Zimmerman winning all 9 matches as part of a 14-match win streak, which is the record right now on Beat the Champ. But that had never happened. I don't know that I thought we'd ever see one guy win 3 like Jeremy did, and then last week to start off with sort of the amazing things that happened, you know, not only on the bowling side, but on the fun side of having the Crest brothers bowling against each other after one of them upsets Mike Zarcone, and then having Chuck Jagodzinski beat Tom Crest with a 299. I mean, I don't know what it is about this place. What did Brian Borowski, the proprietor, say? It has something to do with the water? Whatever it is, man, it is fun to come here because we never know what we're going to see.
Yeah, that's so true. It's interesting because, again, this place can make you a star if you've got the, you know, if you've got the right line here.
That's the best strike of the day for Chuck Jagodzinski.
He's telling somebody something over there.
Chuck actually came up to me and apologized to me because on our last show last month at the Rapids, I made sort of a crack about him losing, and it's never fun to have to interview him after he loses. So Chuck is nice enough to come up to me and say, I'm sorry about that. I said, no, you never have to apologize for your emotion. That's what sports is all about. We love emotion, either good or bad, frustration or triumphant. That's what's great about watching great athletes perform. So I told Chuck, don't ever apologize. Don't worry about me. I'm a big boy. I can handle what. Well, that's right. His wife Michelle has to deal with it much more than I do. I'm not sure if Michelle would make that same deal that I'm making with Chuck.
It's a long ride home when he loses.
If you couldn't hear, she's just off to our left saying it's a long ride home when Chuck loses in one match, right? Yeah, Chuck's nodding his head too.
It's a long day.
Yeah, Niagara Falls back to Lancaster was a long ride home after a one and done.
That's right.
I believe that was a ball change for John.
Okay.
Right there. That
No,
was
we're seeing change. We're seeing the performance change.
But he's looking at only a possible 194. So anything.
So if Chuck
It's not out of reach. It's
Chuck
actually
puts
not
a
out of
couple
reach.
strikes together here at 9 and 10, well, that's that same problem again. You heard the crowd groan a little bit there. Chuck's a regular 4 nights a week in leagues around Western New York. That's part of the reason why he's as good as he is.
Big spare.
Bring out the famous boxing glove spare ball for the knockout punch on the spare in the 9th frame.
All right, so matches in Chuck's hands. If he gets double 9 or 3 in a row, he will shut John out. But anything less than that, he will not. John still has a chance.
First roll of the 10th frame is a strike.
Nice hop there.
Chuck looking for 2 wins in a row here. This one a little more workmanlike than the 299 that he had last week.
Absolutely. This is the little bit of transition that we're going to see, and he'll figure it out. He actually staying with the same ball and has kind of found himself a good line with that ball. That ball's been excellent for him today.
Yeah, got a little left of the target there, and we'll leave the 6 and 10. So once again, kind of keeping the door open for John a little bit here. So here's the fill ball. Good spare pickup. So the final score goes on the board of a 186, certainly well below what Chuck Jagodzinski is used to doing.
So John needs 2 strikes. 2 strikes and just a little bit of count. Nothing dramatic, but he definitely needs the first 2. So all you want is to be able to get up and have the match in your hand. Have a chance.
Boy, that
Game
pin
over.
went flying around the 10, did not take it out, and that will determine that Chuck Jagodzinski, even with a 186, is going to be our winner. First match going to go to Chuck. 2 in a row for him. Tough one for John Masiello. Chuck Jagodzinski advances on. Tim Finken is up next. We'll talk to John about this match and get you ready for match number 2 when Sue and I return. We're at Classic Lanes in Kenmore, and you're watching Beat the Champ. 186 to 173, our final score is Chuck Jagodzinski beats John Masiello. It was an odd match, John. You started off struggling on the front side, but then you're still in position to win, and then, you know, crazy things happen down the stretch.
Surprisingly, I had an opportunity to win at the end, which was a shock in itself.
Yeah. That doesn't usually happen when you have two open frames, right?
We missed 2 spares by 1.5 feet, so neither one of us bowled great. So he bowled a little better. He deserved to win.
Right.
So.
The 10 pins are starting to emerge as a challenge for everybody, aren't they?
Well, they were a challenge for me today.
I think Chuck would say they were a challenge for him a little bit, too.
He made his, though.
Well, that's right. He did. Brian?
Well, still good bowling. Thanks for coming out.
Thanks for hosting us and everything. The bowlers really appreciate Beat the Champ, and hopefully I'll be back.
Yeah, well, thank you. We know you're going to be back because you're one of the best in town. That's John Masiello, Chuck Jagodzinski versus Tim Finken. Match number 2 is coming up next. Thanks, John.
I'm here on Beat the Champ with Tim Finken. Tim, one left-hander last month, and I think that, you know, that's one of those things that are characteristics of this place is, it seems to me, and you'll have to correct me, that it's fair on both sides, a good scoring condition for both sides. Do you see that?
Yeah, in the qualifying it was the same way. I don't have a lot of experience bowling here, but the lefties and the righties, it just seemed to be a battle of who can get the corner pins out the most. So I'm not upset that there's only one lefty ahead of me, but that still can be a good thing. But yeah, this house is one of the more fair ones. This one doesn't have a lefty house name to it, so.
Yeah, so you bowled great in qualifying, and what are you seeing out there today? Far out to the, are you playing the outside of the lane today?
I'm going to probably try and stay inside. Outside, there's a lot of friction out there, so you can play out there, but you better be really firm with it. Otherwise, it's going to be on the other side of the head pin pretty quickly.
Okay, well, you got a tough match, tough day ahead of you here. We've got some really strong show going on, so good luck to you, and hope you do well.
Thank you very much.
Chuck Jagodzinski goes for 3 in a row. The opponent is that gentleman, Tim Finken, 34 years old from Depew. We have had him on our show before. This is his 4th appearance. Tim is looking for victory number 1. Will it come today? We will find out. He's going to have to, I don't know, you know, he's going to have to bowl well. That goes without saying, Sue, but is he going to have to bowl the 299 Chuck Jagodzinski or the 186 Chuck Jagodzinski?
Or somewhere in between.
Or somewhere in between. Which, you know, as we've moved from show 1 to show 2 here, the lanes had a rather dramatic change, and that's a good start for Tim Finken with a strike.
Well, they've broken down some, but they're still quite playable. They haven't moved these guys in. They're not in that deep where they're not comfortable. And Chuck will figure out where his best carry will be.
2 in a row for Chuck. Overall record now on the show, 16 wins and 11 losses. This is his 19th appearance on the show, and he's off to a good start with a strike. We welcome in the proprietor here of Classic Lanes in Kenmore, our buddy Brian Borowski, to join us for a little while here on show number 2. Brian, I want to put you to the test here and let you sum up what we saw in show number 1, because that was as amazing an episode as we've ever had here.
It was a grind, and you know, as you could tell, that spares were important, and unfortunately John missed 2 of them, and that, you know, cost him the match. And sometimes in bowling, you just got to grind it out.
Yeah.
You know, the scores are great when you can bowl great, but sometimes you just got to make those spares. And
Right, and he caught the transition match, so that was going to be really the best opportunity to capitalize on Chuck, because Chuck's ball reactions changed from the 299.
right, and then, you know, Chuck gets, you know, has a little break between show 1 and 2. So, you know, shoot 299, you tone down for a good, you know, half an hour, and then you start bowling again, and you have to, you know, kind of reinvent yourself, you know, with the lighting on the lanes. You know, the oil does move, so that can kind of change everything too.
How about week's 1 series of shows? Have you let all that sink in for you
great.
yet? And what we
Anytime-
saw with the brothers Kress and the Chuck and Zarcone and everything?
It's always awesome when you can have good matches. You know, go down to 10th frame, then you have a sibling rivalry, and then, you know, Chuck with the 299. You know, you couldn't have asked for a better show.
No, could not have. And we're shaping up with a heck of a match here right now because we've got nothing but strikes on the board. 3 in a row for Tim Finken and Chuck Jagodzinski with strikes for the first 2. Let's see if he can match 3 in a row. And he will.
You know, Brian, so often we see houses that either favor left-handers or, you know, shut them out almost entirely. And I don't mean by intention, I mean just by, you know, whatever the difference between the right and left side, whether it be topography or whatever. But here it seems to be very level playing field for the right-handers and left-handers. What do you think attributes to that?
Well, right before this summer, we did recoat and you know, resurface the lanes a little bit, so it's more of a level playing field for right now.
Right.
Last time we did that was about 3 years ago, so the wear and tear on the lane, since this is a wood surface, we have to do that every once in a while.
That's right. So as of right now, there hasn't been the disparity in games between right-handers and left-handers.
That's
so
correct.
It's really quite level. Okay.
Correct.
So kind of just like your house sort of creaks and wood moves and expands a little bit. Is that what happens to the lanes here? Is that the reason why you do that every 3 or 4 years?
Well, when the bowling balls go onto the lanes, it has little indentations. You may not be able to see it to the naked eye, but there is wear and tear, especially when you utilize the track area, which is in between like first and third arrow. You know, it wears out. When something goes over a surface for so many times, it's going to wear out.
And the difference is there's so many more right-handers than left-handers that the right-hand lane gets more beat up than the left-hand side of the lane.
And we remain perfect for both guys. 5 strikes for Tim Finken, 4 for Chuck Jagodzinski, and we're off to a great start, a little dramatically different than what we saw in the first match, and you can see it right there on the Castellone Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram scoreboard. And
Well, I
Chuck
think
matches with his 5th strike.
when you first start wearing down that oil line, when you go from, it becomes a tiny bit wet dry until you wear it down a little bit more. So I think that transition game with the 180, where he shot 186, it's just a matter of, as you're moving in, the oil's getting a little heavier, and now he's worn that down, he's got back to good ball reaction.
Correct, and what that does, it opens up your area. You know, when you first start out, you're try to play a little more up the boards, and then the oil gets pushed down a little bit, then the outsides get a little bit drier, so then you have a little bump and try to...
It doesn't seem like the way you watch it, but it is definitely a process going on the lane.
It's always a process. Anytime you roll a ball down, it changes it. Anytime you have these lights on, it changes it. The weather has an effect on it too.
Yeah, that's
you
the
know?
first non-strike we've had in this match from Tim Finken here in the 6th frame.
So people think it's so easy, they can just, you know, put down a shot and it's going to be consistent from week to week, but there's so many different variables.
Right, and you're only going to move 2 boards through the whole night. That's just very hard to do.
Or last week I was able to play up 10. Today I had to play up 5. You know, every lane is different.
This looks like a good time to take a break. We'll be back with more Beat the Champ right after this. Welcome back to Beat the Champ. It's interesting. Yesterday somebody asked me if this was a game or a sport. And
I don't think there's any question. It's a sport.
well, it's definitely, and my answer was if I had to pick one, I was going to say game, because it's much more cerebral than you give it credit for. And
but it takes a certain level of physical prowess, and which I think, in my mind, makes it a sport, right? At least I think of a sport as equal mixes of smarts and intelligence and preparation and in performance.
In reality, it's both. You look at, let's say, baseball. You have recreational baseball players, that just go out and have fun, and they're more interested in drinking alcohol than playing the sport. Same thing with bowling.
There's no bowlers that think that way, is there?
Not at all. So it really is both. If you really want to compete at a higher level, you are an athlete.
That is 8 in a row for Chuck Jagodzinski.
At this level, you know, you're looking at Chuck bowling. He's in his second week of bowling. He's in his fifth match, and as these matches go on, they take better physical condition to keep your ball speed up, keep making the moves that you have to make, just not to get tired. And it's not just mental tired, it's physical as well. So, you know, bowling 3 games is one thing. Competing in these tournaments and in these long-term matches are where the physicalness comes into it.
Correct. I mean, even when you look at the pro bowlers, when you're bowling in the U.S. Open, you know, it's probably the strongest tournament there is, where you have to bowl 56 games in order to be in the step ladder. That's a grind.
Right.
Don't forget that we have qualifying coming up. There's an open in the 8th for Tim Finken. Qualifying coming up next weekend for next month's series of shows at Island Lanes on Grand Island. The top qualifier in the round of 24 wins television valued at $500 from Dirt Cheap TV. Chris Rathbun took it home from here at Classic Lanes, was not able to qualify for the show, but congratulations to Chris, who can at least watch the show on his brand new television. So Tim, meanwhile, as he's trying to match strike for strike with Chuck Jagodzinski, has hit a little bit of a rut here, and that's going to mean it's a victory already clinched for Chuck Jagodzinski in this one, but we're still going to keep our eyes to find out if Chuck can do what he could not do last week, which is get one more pin down for a 300.
Yep, that's amazing. 2 out of 3 games.
So exactly. So 2 out of 3 games. He has started with 8 consecutive strikes. Let's see. Is it 9? No. See, as soon as you mention it, that's what happens. And if anyone's going to remind me about that, it's going to be Chuck.
Thanks, Nelson.
I was going to say the same thing.
So Chuck Jagodzinski will not get the perfect game as he flirts again with it, but he does get a win. So it's going to be 3 in a row for Chuck, and he'll move on to our final match of the day. We'll come back with more of Beat the Champ right after this. Well, boy, Tim, you started off great. Strikes in the first 5 frames. Looks like we were going to have another one of those epic matches. And then what happened after that?
Yeah, I thought me and Chuck were having one of the fastest Beat the Champ matches ever. But, you know, there's no defense in bowling. Chuck just kept pouring them in there, and I had a couple hiccups. So you win some, you lose some.
You know, when he's bowling as well as he is, how does it affect you as a competitor?
You can't really, like I said, you can only be in control of your game. I tried to tell Chuck before we started to not change anything from the last game, but he didn't want to listen, so.
Trying to poke the bear there a little bit.
I tried to a little bit. I probably shouldn't have, but he made the right changes.
Yeah, well, yeah,
bowled great. So.
The bear woke up.
The bear woke up, yep.
Brian.
Still a great match.
Thank you.
Thanks for bowling.
No problem. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
There you go. Lesson to be learned. Do not poke the bear. If the bear is Chuck Jagodzinski, don't ever poke away. Chuck's got one more match. We'll see if Joe Montante can poke at him a little bit. That's our next and final match of this week. It's coming up next.
I'm here on Beat the Champ with Joe Montante Jr. for your yearly appearance on Beat the Champ, right?
Pretty much. I mean, this house has been very kind to me, and, well, I also happen to work here, so it's very easy to get here and bowl.
Oh, that's the secret. Okay. Did you qualify? Do you try out for other shows other than this one?
I do, but it's been a while. Unfortunately, working in a bowling center during the season, it's very hard to. But I did try last year at Island, and that was actually the last one I tried to make. I was in the top 24. I just didn't make TV over there.
All right, so you are the hometown favorite here, I would have to say.
I would hope so, but I mean, got a couple tough opponents in front of me, so see what happens and who I bowl against.
All right, well, it'll be interesting, and I look forward to seeing you bowl. Good luck today.
Thank you.
Chuck Jagodzinski goes for a 4th consecutive win, and standing in his way is Joe Montante Jr. 2nd appearance on the show for Joe. We saw him a year ago here at Classic Lanes when he was one of the victims of Jeremy Zimmerman's 9 matches in a row streak here. And it's not a surprise that Joe's 2 appearances have come here at Classic Lanes because he works here.
Yep, I'm sure he doesn't want to have the image that he's got, that he has anything to do with it, because he works in the kitchen, does not work on the lane.
Right, but that's okay. That means he can feel this place. And we're feeling Joe with a first frame strike. So Chuck Jagodzinski with 3 in a row now, upping his overall beat the champ record to 17 wins and 11 losses. In those 3 matches that he's already won, averaging 250. But this is where the numbers don't really tell the true story, because the 250 average comes from a 299, a 267, and a 186.
Yeah, I know the feeling. Most bowlers do this.
How do you explain that?
It's transition. Transition is a nightmare. You either sometimes your big game's in the middle and your other 2 games are terrible.
Right.
But that's why an 800 is such an accomplishment.
Oh, yeah.
Because you've overcome the transition.
I had a neighbor of mine who was asking me a little bit about bowling, and he asked me, I think he met someone who had bowled an 800 series or whatever. He has a relative or whatever, and he didn't quite understand what that meant. And I said, that is just about the biggest, best thing that you can do in bowling. We all think it's a 300 game. I said, no, an 800 series is what bowlers bow down to, right?
Great shot.
Because it just goes to, I mean, again, just we're having fun with Chuck here, but you know he's had 3 matches in a row where he's averaged 250, but it's been all over the board, and it just goes to being able to get an 800 series. You have got to be consistent game after game after game.
And you have to be on top of the moves. And the more people, like when you're bowling league and you have multiple people on the lanes, they're affecting how those lanes are breaking down more so than if it were just like a couple people on lanes. Sometimes you'll see some of the 800 series come with when you're bowling the blind, when there's less people on the lanes. An 800 series when there's 2 5-man teams bowling against each other is an incredible accomplishment because of the lanes are changing so much.
Yep. Well, that's a tough one there for Joe Montante in frame number 3. That's going to be a difficult. Well, I thought there was a 3rd pin that was up there, and maybe that one fell late. So it's not as difficult as I thought it was going to be. You heard the crowd sort of groan a little bit when they thought it was looking like a 4, 6, 7 there, wasn't it?
The difficult thing is not continuing to strike when you're up against Chuck Jagodzinski
yes.
today.
Well, like you said, you don't know which Chuck you had to go up against. You know, are you going up against the Chuck that has had strikes for the first 8 frames in 2 of his 3 matches? You know, you better be prepared for that Chuck.
Well, if you notice, Chuck did finally choose to change balls. He had great ball reaction with that the reddish ball that he had, but in order to stay in the same spot that he's been in, he's had to change balls in order to do that. So now, we start off with a double, so it's like a good choice. But it's hard to say. 10 pins are just part of this game and part of bowling here.
Yeah, so as you can see, back to the darker black ball now, and we might be headed back towards the red one very soon. That's a very difficult 3, 6, 7, 10 lead for Chuck. But we saw Mike Zarcone make this once already on last week's show, didn't we?
It's actually not as difficult as it looks, because you're just really trying to make the 3, 6, 10.
Yeah, not going to happen. Only 2 of those, so that's an open with 8 pins in the 4th for Chuck Jagodzinski. Does Chuck had an open? Yeah, Chuck had 1 open in his first match of the day against John Masiello, but that's been it in this win streak. Joe Montante is from Tonawanda, 30 years old. As we mentioned, works here at the front desk at Classic Lanes. 224 average for Joe Montante, bowls here in a Tuesday night league and a Wednesday night league. And in 2017, Joe was the Tonawanda USBC Scratch Doubles Champion.
Oh,
and
great
a nice
shot there.
little roll over there to take the 10 pin out for a strike.
Well, when you bowl league in a house, it does give you a little inside track on how houses break down. So that is where the advantage comes in, and it doesn't necessarily mean working here, it just means bowling here, and houses do tend to break down the same. You know, they'll.
So when you're at the front desk and all the bowlers come and complain to you about what happened to the lanes halfway through their matches, you can
could
tuck
say,
that
hey.
aside and go, oh, okay, I remember that. I'll remember that for next time.
It's actually from physically bowling on it. You know what your moves are, and it's just from doing it all the time. You know, it's this. Sometimes you're going to change balls. Sometimes you're going to move your eyes. Sometimes you're just going to move in. And you know that when you've been bowling in the league for a while.
There's Janelle Saban and the Castellone Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram scoreboard giving you the update on this one. Early on, another strike after the open for Chuck. So first 5 frames are 3 strikes, an open and a spare for Jagodzinski. Joe Montante's first 5 are 4 strikes and a spare. The action will continue on Beat the Champ in just a minute. Welcome back to Beat the Champ. So Joe is keeping the pressure on Chuck right now.
Chuck is down 25. That's the most I've seen. You know, he's had to face today to overcome 25-pin difference.
By nature of the 3-match winning streak that Chuck Jagodzinski is on, he has now moved into second place alone behind Mike Sarcone for most wins here on Beat the Champ. He was in a 3-way tie with Jeremy Zimmerman and Dana Vojtovich when the day started. But has broken through that logjam now. So it's pretty clear to say, I think we're safe to say on both number of appearances and wins, Mike Sarcone and Chuck Jagodzinski have been our 2 most successful bowlers in 2.5 years, almost 3 of Beat the Champ.
Ooh,
that one ran out of steam right as it hit the pocket. And that's going to be a difficult 6, 7, 10.
He just pulled that. That was just not a good shot. He just missed left of his target.
Yeah, under 14 miles per hour according to the scoreboard here, and that's slow. That's slower than it normally would be, slower than it needs to be. All right, what's the challenge in this?
You're just going to shoot. You're going to just shoot the spare. And
are you going to try to spend the 6 over?
Try to nick the 6. So you're going to try to just shoot the 10.
Almost.
When you have ball speed like that, it does, give you a better chance of bouncing it out.
Almost a really nice pickup for Joe, but it will go down as an open in the 6th frame.
And there goes that 25-pin lead, just like
well,
that.
It's, again, I'm pretty sure Chuck wasn't worried about it, and a lot of bowling still left to go in this one. That's what the true pros don't sweat that.
Yeah, that might be the one thing here with when you're talking about the discrepancy between whether you're a tournament bowler, whether you just bowl leagues, where you are in your game. Chuck knows that anything could happen, and you didn't see him get down. He's pretty pumped up for those shots. So now he's in a position to throw a double here and go in the lead.
50 years old from Lancaster is Chuck Jagodzinski. Hope you heard us tell you the story in the last one. What happened there? Wow.
Slow. That was slow.
That was, I'm waiting for the board to come up here and tell me exactly how slow that was. That was just a 14 miles per hour, which, again, Chuck is normally in the 16, 17 range.
So what happens here is dry boards will slow the ball down. So, we talked about that before, whether it's skating down the lane through the oil, it's going to be faster. If you hit the dry board, it's going to slow the ball down. Both guys there on that right lane, you mentioned they both went high, and you both mentioned their ball speed being around 14, but it's because the lanes are drying out.
All right, good bounce back for Chuck. So now Chuck's had 2 opens in this match, but other than the opens, it's been 4 or 5 strikes and a spare. So he's all over the board here. Now, where that's going to take him to who's going to win this match remains to be seen, because Montante has been a little more consistent striking, but he has an open as well, too. And you can see it for yourself right there on the Castellone scoreboard. Good strike. 8th frame. That's a double for Joe Montante.
Yeah, that was a big strike for him right there.
I was just going to say, I hope you heard us tell the story in the first show about Chuck Jagodzinski going to a new chiropractor and having the chiropractor ask him if he ever watches the show Beat the Champ. He's a big fan of that guy who has the unusual delivery, and Chuck had to turn around and tell him, hey, that's me. So it was a great story, but it goes a little bit towards the fact that our great bowlers and the guys who are on the show have sort of become celebrities in this town, as they should, and that's the fun part of what we've been able to do with this show, is turn some of those guys into Buffalo sports celebrities. And if you want your chance to be the next Buffalo sports celebrity, try to qualify for next month's shows at Island Lanes and Grand Island. Top qualifier in the round of 24 wins a television valued at $500 from Dirt Cheap TV. All right, little work to do here for Joe.
Yeah, this is no easy spare right here.
Nobody can string together a whole lot of strikes in this match. Good
Great
spare.
Great spare. Yep. All right, so Chuck is going to need them all to put some pressure on Joe here, because he's down 24 with only 3 frames to go.
And there's a strike in the 9th.
Well, that was a great adjustment there, because that lane's a little tricky.
So let's see now. Chuck will slide over. 10th frame, 31. Needs as many pins as he can get here. First strike.
What a great shot. I'll tell you, that's what it's all about right there, is getting up there and throwing those last 2 shots.
His wife Michelle, his son Noah, his brother Mark, and his friends Fran, Mike, and Dave all here cheering on Chuck Jagodzinski. And they've had a lot to cheer about as he's on a 3-match winning streak.
So what he's created now is, in nature, by throwing that first strike there in the 10th.
Ooh, and Chuck knows it. Looking to the heavens.
Joe has to match him. So no matter whatever Chuck just did, Joe has to match. So he's still putting some pressure on him to get up on that lane that he just went high on.
Yep.
To win this match.
Got to get this 4-pin. Does for the spare. So Chuck Jagodzinski posts up a 204 final score. And now Joe Montante Jr. toes the line in the 10th frame.
He needs a mark here.
Chance to win for his first Beat the Champ victory to end the winning streak of Chuck Jagodzinski and advance on to next week's show.
Strike or spare?
And it's a strike for Joe and a victory for Joe. Good clutch performance as Joe Montante Jr., the full-time employee of Classic Lanes, is going to get to enjoy his time here in a different part of the building as a winner on lane number 32. A victory for Joe Montante. He will be the one advancing to next week's show. We'll come back and talk to both guys when we return. This is Beat the Champ. Well, Chuck, 4 matches, 3 of them are wins. You have 299 at 267, and then the other 2, you didn't break 200 and you barely broke 200. Can you talk a little bit about how trying to grab a hold of what to expect?
Well, I had to change balls because my other ball just was going too long, and this was a pearlized ball, so it was going to hit a lot harder. This 2 shots, I got inside my mark, and both shots I got wide open splits. I didn't get no breaks, and I left 2 taps. He left 1 tap on the fill ball, so I'm not going to win that way.
Right. Well, it was nothing but entertaining, which I know your goal is always to entertain us.
See, I had to keep the ball speed slower, so on my bad shots I'm going to get splits, because I need if I keep my normal speed here, it'd be a 10-pin city.
Right. All right. Well, it was a lot of fun to watch you on the win streak and some of the matches. Brian, make him feel a little better.
A little better. He's bowled great.
Yes, he has. Well, but the last one wasn't a win, and I know, Chuck, that means it's a long ride back to Lancaster, right?
Yeah. 2 games are good, 4 games.
Yeah, all right. Sue, not much of a ride for Joe Montante because he's sticking around.
Well, actually, it was a ride. It was riding the waves of this match because it was up and down, back and forth. Does your experience bowling league here help you with the transitions you see while you're on the lanes?
Yes, it does. You actually just got done bowling a summer league here where we bowled 4 games. We bowled 2-on-1 pair against one opponent. and we switched pairs with no practice and bowled 2 more games against another opponent. So I have experience just getting on the lanes and having to make adjustments on the fly.
Perfect. We're going to have to use that experience to come back and do this again next week.
Yeah, it'll definitely be fun.
All right. Good luck to you.
All right. Thanks to that win, Brian, you're going to give him a day off, aren't you?
No.
See? Heartless here. Good. So Joe that's all right. Joe just means he's going to stick around the bowling center a little bit longer. We're going to stick around one more segment to wrap up this week's show. We'll be back at Classic Lanes right after this. Well, happy for Joe Montante. He gets to come back next week and try to string some wins together. But just a word about Chuck Jagodzinski. What a great run it was. He gave us a ton of thrills. He is a guy who wears his emotions on his sleeve. Sometimes he wears those emotions back at us when he hears what we're saying. But that's what we love about him. That's what makes him so much fun to watch.
I know. It is fun, and he does interact with us while we're talking back there. And, you know, it's like he's entertaining when he's on the lanes and when he's off the lanes. So he gave us a good show for the first 2 weeks, and we'll have to see what happens after this.
Yeah, and much kind of like his bowling over the last, a little bit of the split personality. Right. The happy Chuck is a guy you want to hang with all the time. The not so happy Chuck is the one who it's like, okay, let's move on.
Yeah, well, next month's a new month, right?
That is the intensity of being a great bowler. This was a lot of fun. Not nearly as all over the place as show number 1, but every time we come here, Janelle, we get good stuff.
Yeah, and it's always a great time. It's always a fun experience, and we got to stick around and see what happens next week.
Yes, you do. We got one more week of competitive bowling. Joe Montante will advance. We'll see you as he faces the potential for 3 new challengers. That'll be next week. Another week here at Classic Lanes in Kenmore. We'll see you then on Beat the Champ.